Hey again, it's Christina from Sunshine and Flora. So in this video, I want to recap the entire 2023 growing season for you guys. I want to share the ups and downs and some things that I learned and tried new, and maybe a few things I'm going to be trying new for this year. So I have a whole list typed out and I will overlay footage from the entire year. Typically, I like to do this between Christmas and New Year's, but Santa brought us COVID this year. So I'm a little bit late. I'm taping this on January 3rd, so I'm not too late. But anyway, that's just how things went this season. So anyway, let's dive right in. So last year in January, I started off the winter with some really great online education. A couple years ago, I did the Flora online workshop, which was absolutely amazing. One of the things that I highly recommend doing is taking an online course, whether it's Gardener's Workshop, Florist, and really diving in and learning. While you learn from experience, education is always a really good thing. So last winter, I started off in January with the Tulip Workshop. And let me tell you, this was absolutely amazing. I really want to up my tulip sales in the off season. So this year I'm going to be trying some hydroponic tulip growing and forcing tulips in soil. And because I took the tulip workshop, I am not able to share all of those details with you guys. I will share when I harvest and what everything looks like, but I can't actually teach that to you. So if you are interested in growing tulips hydroponically or with soil forcing, I highly recommend the Tulip Workshop. You can find them via their website or on Instagram. It's absolutely amazing. So last year, my year started off with taking that online course. So I am really, really excited to implement that for this year. Then throughout the winter, of course, I just got into all of the seed starting, and I'm not going to go through every single seed starting date in this video because I have a separate video that I will be posting for that for you guys in a couple days. But that was the winter. One of the main things, though, that I really did last winter that I hadn't done before was starting my dahlia tubers early. So I store my dahlia tubers every year to reuse in the garden. And last winter, I took some out early. I think it was maybe mid-February. And I started rooting them for cuttings. And you do this just by setting them in soil, and then the eyes actually start to grow. And as those growth points get, a few inches tall with a couple sets of leaves, you can cut them and root them, and they will turn into full dahlia plants that produce blooms and tubers. So that was a really exciting thing that I did last winter and super beneficial, and I definitely will be doing that again this year. I have videos that I shared my whole experience with doing that last year. Make sure to check them out. But I'll be sharing the whole process again this year because I definitely am doing that again. So early spring last year brought my very first harvest of daffodils, which I was really, really glad to have. Daffodils will naturalize, and so the patch that I have planted, I will be able to harvest from year after year. So I'm very thankful to have that. I actually planted more daffodils last fall, and so this spring I will even have more daffodils to harvest from. Now, daffodils are going to be the first thing that bloom for me in the outdoor garden this year, and then after that will be tulips. And last year, the tulips that I had bloomed just in time for Mother's Day, and I had some very successful Mother's Day sales. So last year in ground for tulips, I grew 3,300. And that was a really great amount, but I'm growing even more for this year. Last year, as far as sales for my tulips, I did a large delivery to a florist of some tulips. I took them bulb on and all, and she was very glad to have those. The rest of my tulips mainly got sold on Mother's Day, and I had two different things that I offered for Mother's Day. The first one was just a standard wrapped bouquet for $25. The second was a vase arrangement for $40. Both went over really good. Both sold out. And so I will be doing a similar offering for Mother's Day this year. I'm going to change it up a little bit, but definitely offering tulips for Mother's Day again this year. The other thing that I did for Mother's Day was I went to a nearby store, and she had a Saturday Mother's Day event with a few other vendors. I had a lot of the wrapped bouquets that I offered there as well. I guess just to recap, Mother's Day was a really, really great start to the season and probably one of my highest sales weekend of the entire year. So now we're going to talk about one of my first fails of the year. And I have a couple of them. We all do. That's how we learn. The fall before last year, so the fall of 2022, I planted tulips and peonies in crates. The peonies I was hoping to winter over. It did not work. They rotted. I also tried growing some tulips in crates. That also was a fail. I think that they completely froze and they just rotted. I actually did get maybe a few dozen bloomed tulips from those crates, but a majority of them were a fail. So this year, I'm learning from the tulip workshop and I am going to be doing them correctly. So last year in the spring, the really big thing that we did in the garden was put up the hoop house. And while having the hoop house last year was a success, my early plantings in there were a fail. So my hopes for the hoop house were to get it installed and plant my ranunculus and anemones in there and have a beautiful harvest for early spring. Well, we had a really slow start to the spring. The frost remained in the ground. You know, it was frozen, so we couldn't put the posts in early enough. And the hoop house itself was not set up early enough for the ranunculus and anemones to succeed because those are early season crops. So I was really excited to have the hoop house last year, but it did not yield the early spring crops that I had hoped. So this year, I hope to have ranunculus and anemone early, stock, campanula, and a whole host of other things to get an early spring harvest and a summer harvest. So last year with the hoop house definitely was a learning experience. I think I finally planted out in the hoop house the very end of April, or no, I think it was maybe, I'll put the date on the screen, early May, which is about a month and a half to 2 months later than I really could have planted. Last year, in addition to putting in the hoop house, we also added a lot of additional garden space. So to the west of the hoop house, I added a huge area of planting space. And my gosh, did I harvest out of that area. My entire zinnia patch was in that area. I had feverfew, dianthus, sunflowers, gladiolas. It was an amazing space, and so I cannot wait to utilize that again for this growing season. By adding that growing space and the hoop house, I pretty much doubled my growing space in 2023 as compared to 2022. So now we're up to June, and that is when my farmers markets begin. I am in charge of our local farmers market, which runs every Tuesday, 4:30 to 6:30, June through September. So we usually get about 16 or 17 markets in. Last year, I did most of the markets. We did have to cancel 1 or 2 for heat, and I think I missed 1 because of illness. So I probably did 13 or 14 markets. It went amazing. And you know, the farmer's market was the first way that I actually started selling cut flowers that let people know that I was doing it. So if you have a local farmer's market or one that's nearby that you can jump into, I highly recommend it because word of mouth is definitely the best way to get your business started. Last year, aside from our local farmer's market, I also did a couple of other markets. I did one in a neighboring town that is about 15 miles away and is the town that I grew up in. This year, because of my schedule and because of the building renovations and everything, I don't think I will be doing that market. That market also did not yield the sales as our local farmers market. So that will be a change coming for this year, but I did do that a few times last year. Another market that I did was in August, and that was in a town about 30 minutes away. And that was something that a local coffee shop started last year. I think it was the 3rd week in August that this coffee shop offered a vendor market, and it was a huge success. They did end up doing a fall vendor market that I was not able to do because we were on vacation, but I'm really hoping that they offer a few more of these in 2024, and then I can try to go to that as well because that was really great for sales. I took wrapped bouquets and jelly jar arrangements, and it was a really good boost to the income for that month. One of the other avenues of sales that I did last year in the summers was a delivery to a bakery about a half an hour away. Now, the bakery, unfortunately, since then has closed. She has gone back to another career path. But last year, the bakery sales were really great. About 4 or 5 times, I would take anywhere from 8 to 15 bouquets up. She would sell them and she would take a commission. I would still get a good rate. And so that was another way that I would get extra sales, but also would get extra word of mouth advertising for my business. Then florist sales. Last year, I continued to sell to a florist about 25 minutes away from me. I hope to do that again this year. I would deliver flowers to her, usually in pre-wrapped bouquets that she would call her Farm Fresh Friday. And it was really fun to be able to drop those off, and she would say that they were from my flower farm. She would tag me on Facebook. So again, another really good word of mouth way to get my business out there to people. This was the same florist that I took all of those tulips to in May. And when she had dance recital bouquets to sell, I made all of those for her. I think I took her 35 to 40 bouquets of different price increments just for those dance recital sales. And that was super fun. I think that was in August. So we'll see if she wants to do that again this year, but that was really great for sales last year. And speaking of August bouquets, the same day that I delivered all of those dance recital bouquets, we had our local farm to table event. And I put together, I think, 45 jarred arrangements for this farm to table event. Now, this was a fundraiser for our local downtown to raise money to develop parks and other areas. And so we raised a really great amount of money that night. And I was really excited to be a part of that event. I not only made all of the bouquets, but I photographed the event. If you're new to watching my videos, I've been a professional photographer for about 20 years. So that is my main job. Now this is kind of morphing into my main jobs. So I guess you could say I kind of have 2 main jobs. So now we're moving from August into September, so into the end of my garden season. One of the projects that I did last year that really worked well for me was going through and rejuvenating my entire zinnia patch. So a little reference on time frame for this. I have a really big end of the season market that I do the 3rd weekend in September that I need as many flowers as possible for. So 2 to 3 weeks, I'll put the date on the screen, before that market, I went through my zinnia patch and I cut back everything. Every single bloom, every single spent bloom, every single bud, I cut it back to rejuvenate the patch. And then the week of this large market that I have, everything flushed back, branched out, and I had an enormous amount of zinnia blooms for that market. It worked really well. I did videos on it. I will be doing that again this year, but that was a way to really rejuvenate, to have ample blooms for this market. So the market that I do the end of September is called the Made and Found Midwest Market. It's in Anthon, Iowa, about 25 minutes. I did a couple videos on it because it's probably, besides Mother's Day, my other biggest sales weekend of the year. It is made up about 80 vendors who are all handcrafters. Everything needs to be handmade, homegrown, repurposed. It's a unique market. It's outside with food trucks, live music. It's amazing. It's already on the calendar for this next year. Last year in 2023, it wasn't as good of turnout because we had some really bad weather come through that day. So I ended up scaling back and taking about half of what I normally take, which it was a success. I sold out except for about maybe 5 bouquets, which I ended up selling online when I got home. But it wasn't the turnout that we had the year before. So hopefully this next year we go back to that turnout. It was just weather related. I ended up opening the studio up the day before on that Friday, and I sold quite a bit the day before just to kind of, sell all those flowers that I had harvested. But that is an amazing market. It is my favorite event of the entire year, and every single year that they put on that event, I will hopefully be there doing it. Now, besides the cut flowers, I also take pumpkins to that event. I grow small to medium sized specialty pumpkins specifically for that week in September, and I take as many as I possibly can to that market. While I had plenty of pumpkins to take to that market, my pumpkin harvest was not as good in 2023 as it was in 2022. And I think that was for a couple reasons. The first reason, well, both reasons apply to sunflowers. I let a bunch of self-seeded sunflowers grow in that area. And when I planted my pumpkin seeds, the self-seeded sunflowers, when they started growing, they shaded out the pumpkin seeds. So that contributed. The other thing I learned from my pumpkin supplier, who is the Blue Pumpkin Seed Company, he told me that sunflowers, when they are growing, they can give off a chemical to other nearby plants, hindering the growth of those nearby plants. So I have learned for 2024, the pumpkin space will only be the pumpkin space. There will be no sunflowers growing in or around any of the pumpkins, and we're gonna see what kind of harvest I get in 2024. So following that big market, the Made and Found market, we took a week's vacation, which was very much needed. And then we came back and then it was October. Our average first frost date is typically the first or second week in October, maybe around the 10th. If I remember correctly, I ended up harvesting the first 2 weeks outside in the garden. We got our frost, but then because I had the hoop house, I was able to harvest dahlias the entire month of October. And I believe my last bouquet sale was almost at Halloween, which was really exciting. So not only will my hoop house extend my season earlier for sales, it also will extend my season later for sales. So really great benefit of having that hoop house. So now that the cut flower season is over, we get into fall, and that's when I do a lot of other projects around the garden. I have a lot of things that I plant in the garden to prepare for the coming year. And one of those things is tulip bulbs. So for 2024, I planted 4,400 tulip bulbs in the ground. So about 1,100 more than I had for the previous year. Really excited about that. I also, like I said, had ordered, maybe 1,500 more tulips to grow hydroponically and with soil forcing. So I have that going for this year. The other things that I planted were some perennial salvia in the ground. I planted campanula in the hoop house to winter over for the spring of 2024. And then I also planted all of those peonies in the ground. I have 2 areas where I had the peonies planted. One was in a new garden area on the new property, and another, I have 22 peony roots planted in that new garden space that I've shared in a video. The one thing about peonies is that you can't harvest off of them for 2 to 3 years because you need to let the plants develop, but I am really glad to have them planted to get a head start for future years to harvest those. So 3 other things really also happened during the fall. We moved the greenhouse to its new location, and that opened up all of that growing space in the main garden area. I had another area of topsoil brought in to develop a new planting area for 2024. And of course, the building renovation. Last fall, I was able to share the really exciting news with you guys that we bought the neighboring building, and this is going to be the retail and grow space for Sunshine and Flora. I cannot tell you how excited I am about this. I have posted numerous videos about this, and I will continue to post renovation videos. Right now, we're almost ready to get started on the basement where we have to rebuild the foundation. But basically, the basement of this building will be grow space where I will do my winter tulip growing and all of my seeds starting. And then the main floor will be a work area where I can harvest and make all of my bouquets. But then the main space of the building will be a retail space for Sunshine and Flora. So customers are going to be able to come in, buy bouquets, garden related items. I have so many products that I am excited to offer in the retail space, and I'll be sharing that with you guys. But I would say that was the big news going into this new year. So a few bad and good highlights of the year that I have listed just to wrap up this video. We'll go through the bad first. Low points. Overall, my growing was not up to my expectations for last year. Due to putting in all of that new infrastructure, I ran behind schedule on planting, and some of the areas, honestly, the older planting areas didn't even get planted at all. So for 2024, my goal is to be on schedule with all of my planting, which I should be because all of my infrastructure is in place. I also want to set more drip lines that I did in 2023 and really utilize all of my garden space. Due to having those unmaintained areas, my weeds were out of control in 2023. 2024, a goal is to remedy that, of course. And then one of the other areas I realized where I put some of the raised beds, I have a flooding issue. So in 2024, we hope to remedy the flooding issue so all of those raised beds can be utilized as well. High points of 2023, besides the building and all of the really exciting things that I just shared in this entire video, my sales were up. I had much higher sales in 2023 than I did in 2022. I had the longer growing season due to the hoop house and all of the fall prep that I did, which will allow for easy spring planting this year. Those were really great high points of the year. Okay, so if you are still watching this video, thank you so much for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed seeing this recap from the previous year, and maybe it gave you guys some ideas for this new year. And once again, I have so much to share with you for the winter. I have a lot of videos in the works as far as seed starting calendar, everything that I'm growing for this year. I'll be sharing my whole garden plan with you guys again, not only for the outdoor garden, but the hoop house. And then of course the building renovation. I'm gonna share all of that with you guys. I need to make a playlist just for that. But I have a lot of things planned for this year that I cannot wait to share. So again, thank you so much for watching the videos and supporting this channel. Make sure to subscribe if you haven't, and hope you're all having a really great start to the new year. We'll see you soon.